Welcome, everyone, to the June 6, 2023 Village of Buchanan Board meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. All right, thank you. Okay, first on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for April 25th, 2023 special meeting, and also our workshop meeting of April 25th and the May 2nd board meeting. Are there any comments on these? No changes?
No.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, comments from the floor, and this is agenda items only. And you also realize that we are having a public hearing, so you can comment during the public hearing also. So if there's no comments from the floor, under new business, I'm going to make a motion to open the public hearing regarding proposed zoning text and map amendments to the C1, C2 overlay district for the development of unimproved property located on Albany Post Road and now designated on tax map of the town of Portland as section 43.16, block 3, lot 16 and 16A, and section 43.20, block 2, lot 2. So with us this evening is our planner, David Smith, and I'm going to have David start with an overview of what we're... Oh, yep, on a motion to open the public hearing, please.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Cindy keeps me in line. Or she tries, right, Cindy? All right, David, thank you so much. If
You're
you
welcome.
could start.
Good evening. For the record, David Smith, Principal with Planning and Development Advisors, Planning Consultant to the Village of Buchanan. So the Mayor and the Board of Trustees have opened a public hearing on proposed zoning text and map amendments to the Village of Buchanan Code. In a couple of minutes, you will hear a presentation from the applicant, AMS, and their professional team related to how what the proposed zoning includes, and then how the zoning may be implemented. And I'll go through that in a little bit of detail. So just to start, Mayor, the applicant submitted a formal rezoning petition earlier this year in January 2023. And as part of that submission, the village board needs to go through the State Environmental Quality Review process. That's called SEEKR. And the board initiated that process with a notice of intent to act as lead agency for the environmental review process. And the lead agency essentially is the body that will help coordinate the environmental review and ultimately has the authority for decision-making as part of the process. So that notice of intent was circulated to a list of interested involved agencies, including the Village of Buchanan Planning Board, the Village of Buchanan Zoning Board of Appeals, the City of Peekskill, the Town of Cortland, New York State DOT, New York State DEC, amongst others, and Westchester County. And the village received comments back from Westchester County, from New York State DOT, from the Village of Buchanan Planning Board, none of whom objected to the village board acting as the lead agency. So subsequently in March, on March 7th, 2023, the village board declared themselves to be lead agency to coordinate the environmental review. As part of that process, the village board asked the applicant to prepare a submission called an expanded environmental assessment form. And that included a number of reports, traffic report, reports on utility and stormwater. And this is all at the conceptual level at this time, because the issue is that the village board is considering zoning text and map amendments, and how those may be implemented, that's the subject of the environmental review. So the board received the expanded environmental assessment form. They reviewed it in public They had some requests of the applicant to supplement the environmental assessment form with additional information, and they essentially accepted it for public circulation and scheduled a public hearing, which is the subject of tonight's meeting. Now, it's important to note that as part of this process, the village board needed to refer the application to the Village of Buchanan Planning Board. That's a statutory requirement in your code. The planning board met on May 25th in a regularly scheduled meeting. They had a quorum present. They reviewed the proposed zoning and reported back to the village board that they had no objection to the proposed zoning. The planning board did have a number of more specific questions related to site plan, and I think this is an important distinction for the public to understand, that the application and the materials that were submitted are essentially at the conceptual level. There's a process that the village will have to go through. The first step is to make sure that the zoning is in place. Once the zoning is in place, then the applicant would submit a formal special permit application and a site plan. And that's where you would get into the details of actually how the development may be constructed and the impacts that that development may have. In the interim, the applicant has provided a fair bit of information relative to the projected impacts of the proposed project, relative to traffic and school children, taxes, impacts to community services. So while the board, the planning board, and the public may have specific questions about the site plan, the applicant may not have a specific answer because we're not at that stage yet. However, it was important to note, particularly when we discussed this with the planning board, that it puts the applicant on notice that these are important issues that will have to be addressed at some point in the future when a specific site plan application is submitted to the village. And I'll just quickly go through, and I know the chairman of the planning board is here, and he can go through some of these in more detail, but some of the site plan comments that they had talked about, the fire department has responded to brush fires in the past along the power lines. And so the consideration was whether you could locate a fire hydrant on that side of the building or have a connection for firefighting purposes. Could the existing pond be used to draft water for firefighting? They wanted to know what the retaining walls would be, what they would look like as part of the plan. Will the plan include solar panels as part of the rooftop amenities? What kind of security would be provided for residents? Will there be a super on site? Costs related to the community relative to the taxes anticipated. They talked about comparable developments that use 1.5 parking spaces per unit that's currently being proposed, whether a pool is being proposed as an amenity for residents. And if there are going to be electric charging stations, they should probably be located outside of the building. So that's just a flavor of some of the issues that the planning board started to get into with respect to site plan. And so I think it's important, again, that the public can raise those types of questions. The applicant is encouraged to respond to those questions that they can at this point. They may not have an answer, and I think it's with all due respect, they should be, if questions come up, they should be allowed an opportunity, not necessarily to respond tonight, but perhaps in writing later on as part of the process. So again, the public hearing is for the proposed zoning text and map amendments. I think I don't exactly know your protocol, but if a member of the public comes up after the applicant has made a presentation, all I would ask is give your name and your address and provide your comments, and then at some point in time there will be responses back. So, Madam Mayor, that provides an overview of the process that the village board has gone through to date. And then I would ask perhaps to have the applicant provide a presentation, not only of the proposed zoning amendments, but also of the conceptual site plans that they prepared that help your board and the public understand the implications of the proposed project. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes, please.
Did you want to mention the 3 minutes?
When the public
Yeah.
is on. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, David. That was great. I'm done. You said that.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. My name is Mark Weingarten. I'm a partner in the law firm of Del Bello, Donnell, Weingarten, Wise, and Wiedeker down in White Plains, and it's my pleasure to be here this evening representing AMS Acquisitions LLC in connection with its proposal to redevelop the approximately 6-acre site located at the intersection of Albany Post Road and Craft Lane in Buchanan, New York. Can we get the next slide, please? That worked. So there you see Albany Post Road down at the bottom, just to orient you, and Craft Lane. And as I know, and I'll apologize for those of you who've heard it before, but we're going to go through it a little bit so that the public who are here for the public hearing, if they haven't before, will go through it. I'm joined tonight, actually, hopefully in a few minutes, by Ari Mitnick from AMS. I know he was on his way. You'll hear from our architect, Stuart Lax, a co-managing principal at Perkins Eastman, who will take you through the conceptual site plan, as David suggested. We also have Peter Farrow with us, the Senior Technical Director at AKRF, who prepared all of that environmental information that you've been reviewing, things like traffic and things like water quality and wetlands and steep slopes and all those things that you asked us to put information on. Peter and his outfit have been working on that. Can we get to the next slide, please? So as David said, this part of the process where we are now is really determining whether or not you think this project is a good idea in concept. Right now, we can't build what we want to build because your zoning code doesn't permit the use. So we're asking you to make a change to your zoning code. So in January of this year, we filed a petition on behalf of AMS to amend the zoning map of the village to rezone the rear portion of the site from M1 light industrial, which is approximately 3.82 acres of the site, to the C2 district. And then, because the balance is already C2, and then to map the entire site to the C1, C2 overlay zoning district. So first we need to take the M1 portion in the back, make that C2, and then make the entire site the overlay district. We also have asked for some changes to the zoning code in addition to that particular request. We've asked to allow by special permit of the village board an increase in density in connection with this overlay district from 12 units per 40,000 square feet to 28 units per 40,000 square feet. Again, when you do the math, it'll add up to what we tell you we're requesting for the project itself. We're asking to allow by special permit an increase in height of the buildings from 3 stories, 40 feet, to 5 stories, 65 feet. We're asking to establish an off-street parking requirement of 1.5 spaces per apartment. So again, that's the same 1.5 spaces per unit, whether it's a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom. It kind of averages out. Normally you would have 1 for the 1-bedroom, 2 for the 2. It comes out to the 1.5 and a little bit less. We think we have is much more parking actually than we're going to wind up needing. And that's the study that we submitted. And finally, we're looking to designate the village board as the approving agencies for all of these special permit conditions. Not that we are avoiding your planning board, because they are part of every step of this process, just as they were with this, but that the ultimate decision would be, as this is a very large project, and as they do in many other municipalities, would be the ultimate decision of the village board. I'm gonna skip over the discussion of AMS. You've heard it many times. I think the public has also. Suffice it to say, they're a very well-heeled company, capable. They own millions of square feet. They're very present now in County of Westchester. They're now approved through a rezoning in Yonkers for 3,500 apartments. They have a project going on in Yorktown right now for 250. They have your project, and there are other projects on the board. So they're very committed to the concept of multifamily housing in Westchester County. The proposed project, and you'll hear in a moment in more detail from Stuart, is 148 luxury multifamily housing apartments, 56 1-bedrooms, 92 2-bedrooms, upscale amenities in the 5-story building we mentioned. The site has been designed to avoid the steep slopes and wetlands on the property to the maximum extent practicable, and the 225 parking spaces provided, the bulk of which are underneath the building, and we think that's a big plus that we're putting it underneath the building out of sight, the vast majority of it. The proposed use, multifamily housing, is permitted in the overlay district. Our proposal will develop a long-time vacant site, will beautify the neighborhood, in our opinion. We will build sidewalks as a pioneer of your plan for creating a new village-like community. We believe our proposal is the highest and best use for the land and makes the project financially feasible. Our project, we believe, is consistent with your comprehensive plan. It creates a more diverse housing stock, which you've requested in that plan, provides a transitional use between the R75 and R10 zones located to the west of the site and the M1 district to the east. It creates a physical and aesthetic improvement to the streetscape on Albany Post Road. As I mentioned, new sidewalks, pedestrian crossings, landscaping. It's designed to preserve the natural features, as I mentioned. Finally, I will point out what we believe are some of the strong benefits of this project. It generates a net property tax benefit for both the village and the school district, and we have provided economic information with respect to that and certainly can answer questions if you have them. It creates numerous construction jobs and activities. The local businesses, in my belief, in my experience, will love the increase in sales from the construction workers that will be here working for quite some time. The delis and the restaurants will love these projects. They will benefit long-term from the new customers who will be moving in. People who are able to afford the rent and live here in your village will be a big boon to the commercial and retail base of your village. As I mentioned earlier, it creates a diverse housing stock. We need this right now in Westchester County. That's why it's happening up county. It creates places for empty nesters to relocate from their single-family homes, for divorcees to live in an apartment and stay nearby the family home and still be able to see their children. And most importantly, bringing people with income to live in your village where they are ready to start a family. And these are the people you will hopefully eventually sell your homes to, because they'll want to stay here once they get to know the village and they'll love it and they'll want to put their kids in the schools here. That's the concept. It works all over the country, and we're hoping that it's going to work here in the Village of Buchanan. So I'm going to ask now if I could turn it over to Stuart Lax, our architect. He's going to walk you through the graphics and the design so people can see actually what our proposal is. But I would just stress, as David mentioned earlier, these are concept plans. We haven't finalized colors. We haven't finalized the shape of the roof, or all those things are going to happen when we talk to you in the planning board later in the site plan process. This is the general concept to make sure that the concept makes sense. If that works and we're rezoned, we will come and then spend the money to fully engineer, put in the architecture, make this really look as beautiful as it can, and then we'll come in and have the final discussions as to what this project will look like. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Madam Mayor, Village Trustees, Stuart Lax, LACHS. I'm an architect. I'm principal with Perkins Eastman Architects based in Stamford, Connecticut. As Mark said, this is the site plan, just under 6 acres at a site at the intersection of Craft Lane and Albany Post Road. Next slide, please. And as I go through, we'll cover the guiding principles that as we develop this concept plan that you'll see in the features. I won't read off the individual bullet points, but you see them there on the screen. Next slide. We identified here some of the prevailing site features, certainly on the left-hand side. No, sorry. It's okay. In green there on the left, some of the slopes, the steep slope areas, the major site features, the blue arrows down and red egress points off of the roads, the wetlands up by the pond and the wetlands buffer, and of course the power lines adjacent. Next slide. Here we have the slope analysis performed by JMC, the civil engineers that identified the areas of steepest slope. Just sort of visible on the side as well is the wetlands buffer 100 feet. We have tried in placing one of our design intents was to minimize the impact both on the steep slope, where we place the building, where we place the parking, as well as keeping the building out of the buffer to minimize, again, intrusion into the wetlands. Next slide. Just briefly touching upon some of the street improvements that Mark mentioned, the sidewalk along Albany Post Road with a little bit of a landscape buffer between the sidewalk and the proposed parking. Next. And again, here's the site plan showing the roof, the parking, some landscapes. Again, to reiterate, these are initial concepts of what might be permissible under the proposed zoning. About 170,000 square feet of residential with some amenity space, a little under 65,000 for parking. That's underneath the building. In this case, covered by the building. There is some surface parking. And at this point, a mix of 38% one bedrooms, 53% two bedrooms, and another 9% two bedrooms plus den for 148 units. Next slide, please.
That's it. That's the next one.
No?
That's where we were, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. There you, yeah. Oh, okay. This is the, oh, I see. The individual floor, showing you a typical floor plan, how we have divided the units on three sides surrounding a courtyard. There would be some amenity, that would be a landscaped courtyard with some amenity features within. At this point, we're contemplating a pool for the building residence use, and that opens up the view to the pond beyond. Next slide. There's 30, that 38 is, that's per floor. There you go. This plan, ground level plan, shows the parking, 162 spaces underneath the residential portion of the building, and then another 65 surface parking. What you can sort of make out here, there's a little turnaround for the entry at the lower left corner of the building, and then surrounding what would be the west and south sides, we've got access drive for the fire department. That's based on some feedback from the fire department regarding access for their equipment and to aid their personnel in fighting any fire, which we, well, of course we hope they don't and never have to do. 227 spaces is shown overall. That's a slightly more than 1.53. There's 1.5, slightly more than the 1.5 parking spaces. Next slide. And now I have a series of slides that talk about how our building design, again, our conceptual building design at this point, addresses a number of features from your comprehensive plan as it pertains to the building design. Go ahead, next slide. Architectural features in terms of breaking up the roof, setting a scale so that we don't have continuous long walls, monotony of that. Next slide. Multi-story building of several levels, and the architecture articulated to make use of that, and again vertically giving some articulation to the different forms, modulating, undulating of the facade walls again so that they're not continuous. Next, please. We've got a combination of roof massing to break up the roof itself, and roof pitch. It's not flat roofs. It's a more traditional style fitting in with the character of the village. Next, please. And again, traditional use of roof materials, asphalt shingles, a variety of roof shapes, hips and gables on the roofs, some sheds over the bays. Next, please. And here, we have a distinct ground floor at the ground level. That's parking. The parking will be semi-clad. We need to maintain a degree of openness of the parking for ventilation purposes, but some level of concealment, and then colors to break up the massing. Again, all of these things tied together to give the building a sense of scale and to fit within the context. And just an overview. This sort of finish up with a selection of renderings from different viewpoints. This is from the south looking in. You can get a sense of the raised courtyard and the apartments that surround on three sides. Next. This is a little further south from Route 9A looking north. You see the building jutting over the tree line, but making use of the existing tree line and supplemental plantings to minimize the view from the road. And lastly, the view from north looking back south, you see the intersection. You get a sense of the proposed street improvements and the building beyond. And that's really it for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I neglected to mention that Phil Greeley, who is the village's traffic consultant, is here with us tonight in the event that there are comments related to traffic.
Perfect.
I forgot to mention that he was here.
That's fine.
Thank you, David.
Before I open it up to comments, I want to say something. I am a lifelong village resident. Let's see, 4th generation. I have a cousin who lives here, 5th generation, and they just had a child last year. So there's 6 generations of us here. And I'm sure many of you would prefer not to see the village change at all. But what happened with the closure of Indian Point, Entergy, really affected us. It was a huge hit to our financial base. And since the announcement in 2017, the boards have been working to try to replace that the money that we lost. So one of the things, we were looking at different developments, and then also, but one of the things that we worked on was an overlay district, which would encourage development in certain areas on Route 9. So we have a developer who has expressed interest in developing on the Route 9. So we are entertaining that. We are facing some challenges ahead. There's still going to be some bumps in the road. And so the game plan is to try to do some type of development, like I said, to compensate for the loss. It will not cover the complete loss. We lost half of our income, half of our revenue. So slowly, what we're looking to do is some development. I think the key and the goal for us is really the Indian Point property. If we can get those 60 acres released, that is going to keep us going and keep the village alive. And going through this whole process, after the closure, I spoke to many people, and they wanted to save the village. They wanted to keep the village. No matter what it took, they wanted to keep it. So I said, well, we're going to work on different things. And one of the things that, and I'm not saying this, so please don't go back and say that I said this, but what many of the residents had said to me is that they don't want to be the third stepchild of the town of Cortland. So I said, I know it's a great community. We're going to do everything we can to survive. It's a beautiful community. We have people that are moving here from all over, and they love it. This is probably one of the last areas of small town USA. And it's a very special community, and we have so many wonderful people here. So we want to stay alive. We want to stay vibrant. So the developer, AMS, came in, and we're entertaining a development. And I most importantly am so happy to see so many people here tonight that are going to give us your thoughts and your comments about this development. And I'd also like to see all these people at the decommissioning meetings, because we have a lot of things going on and that are going to affect the village also. So, but that's not for this evening. Tonight we are going to hear your comments about this proposed project. So, as you come up to speak, there's a 3-minute time limit, and I would really appreciate if you can give, as David had said, your name and your address, or where you live. You know, it could be Henry Street, Buchanan, wherever you live would be great. So are any board members, would anybody like to make a comment before I open it up to the floor?
No, I'm ready. I'm ready. Open it up to the floor.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so who would like to come up to make a comment? Oh, no, you guys are not shy, I know that. Okay, thank you, Jeff, for starting. Thank you.
Jeffrey Fiala, 212 Craft Lane, also planning board lead. I want to thank AMS for coming to the planning board and give us a brief, because we didn't get any information from the village. We do have a process for new projects coming through the village, and I just wanted to tell you that I am not in favor of the village board being the lead. Some of the concerns that the village community has spoken to me over were parking overflow, going to the Buchanan Hardware Store, Lindsay and Craft Lane during the season where you can park on the street. So we have had problems with that, with tenants on Lindsay parking on Craft Lane. And the other thing was the 2-bedroom plus with the dens. We like to see that the village board does not let that go into a 3rd bedroom, because that would create more cars and parking on this specific site. And we just like to get the information from the New York State DOT on the traffic patterns. And I think that's all I have. And I'm looking forward to hear what the rest of the public have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Richard Funcham, 179 Kings Ferry Road. I'd like to congratulate Anthony on your re-election, and Bob, as a new person. I think you'll all do a great job. I'd like to speak against changing the zoning. I'm against the development of I'm not against the development of the village. I just think this is the wrong place and it's the wrong building. I grew up in New York City, and I witnessed on several occasions where massive projects of residential communities were built, and in the process, 1-family houses, 2-family houses, small apartment houses were bulldozed down and built 20, 30-story apartment buildings. What it did was it changed the character of the neighborhood. I'll give you an example. Manhattan used to have many, many different neighborhoods. They really don't have very many now. Little Italy's very small. Chinatown's gotten much smaller because more and more people are moving in that don't really care about what the character of a neighborhood is. I understand the project is about 148 apartments. The original zoning, that when the overlay zone was voted on, was looked upon as that there would be a commercial unit on the first floor, and then maybe 1 floor and 2 floors above that of apartments. I say this, as the mayor said, about many people moving in. It's one of the reasons I moved up here 46 years ago from New York City. I liked the fact that there was 1-family homes. I liked the fact that there was not houses on top of houses. This community is still basically full of 1-family homes. We have 1 apartment house in Buchanan, and it is nowhere near the size of the apartment house that is proposed. Also, people move up here because this is probably one of the least dense populated areas in the whole metropolitan area of New York City. People love it. I speak to people in Verplank. I hear from people in Buchanan and in Montrose. They like where they are. I understand the problem with the village, but I think we can work through it. And as the mayor said, what she commented on, I think that a much better process would be building on the site where Holtec owns now. Holtec never wants to be a real estate person, so it's a matter of waiting out a little bit of time for that. It makes more sense because the people, we are not like Tarrytown or Elmsford. They're overrun with apartment complexes, and the traffic is bad. And speaking of traffic, the traffic will be negatively impacted. It already is negatively impacted. I live on the corner of Tate and Kings Ferry, when I could tell you there are so many people going from Albany Post Road right now to avoid the traffic that's there at 3 o'clock, between 3 and 6 at Welter Avenue. They're coming down Kings Ferry Road and going through Verplank to get on Louisa Street. So if there's going to be a traffic study, it has to be the whole village, not just what's going on Albany Post Road. As I said before, I am for development, and I do think the Holtec property would be a far better choice for development than on Albany Post Road. And I also doubt whether the 5-story development in question will be a windfall of tax revenue for Buchanan. We will definitely have to hire another police officer, more than likely. And that is between $100,000 and $150,000 cost when you take into account overtime, medical, and everything else. In addition, the highway department will probably need more money and maybe even more people. And the same thing goes with the fire department. They will need more money, different types of equipment.
Rich, the time limit went.
Okay.
Can you, just
No, okay, I'm
synopsis?
sorry. I'm sorry. It's not the right place, and it's not the right time. Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you, Rich. I'm sorry, I didn't know what that ding was, so okay, please, yes. Anyone else? Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, this gentleman is coming up.
Yeah, just let's finish in here first, I think.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is John Keenan. I live on Catherine Street and Albany Post Road. My question is, what kind of housing are we going to have? Is it going to be market value? Is it going to be moderate income like they had in Croton? What do we?
It's market value.
So these will be
Market rate.
luxury apartments and people paying top dollar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I forget, they did have an analysis of what a one-bedroom would cost, and, so it's market rate.
Okay.
Thank you. No one else? All right, we have a hand raised, so we're going to try to go.
Lauren, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Good, go ahead, your turn.
Okay, this is Lauren Antonelli, 4 Pheasants Run in Buchanan. Apologies for not being there in person, but I didn't want to miss it, and I was running late. Number one, I'm not sure I know how I feel yet, so I'm just going to say, I'm going to mention a couple of points, but, number one, I do think change, we're talking about change in the school district, we're talking about change in a lot of places. So I think sometimes we do have to consider it, so I'll appreciate the fact that we get an opportunity to review it. I do think things like beautification, sidewalks, all of those things will help our community. But I do think there are some serious things that need some consideration. Number one, I just have to ask, the photos that were shown, which way is the courtyard? Like, is it behind the hardware store? I feel like those photos were showing different views and then I got confused. So is the horseshoe, is the front of the, does anybody?
What direction?
The horseshoe's facing.
The horseshoe is facing south. It's Mark Weingarten again for the record. So in other words, the hardware store that's up on Albany Post comes to the side of the building. The horseshoe is on the other side of that side of the building, inside the middle of it, and it faces out towards the pond, which is to the south of the building, if that helps.
So not towards Craft?
No, the other direction.
Not towards Route 9?
No,
So the opposite.
no, the opposite of Craft.
Lauren, so the pond you're seeing is directly behind Dunkin' Donuts, let's say?
Yeah.
The horseshoe faces the
Oh,
pond.
okay.
So
That's a little more.
Thank
of
you.
a-
gonna look
That
out on
photo,
the
you'd
pond.
have to be by the tennis courts, down by
Yeah.
the bus garage.
So if you're looking down from the bus garage, that's the angle of the horseshoe.
Got it. Thank you for that. Okay. And thanks for putting all those documents out in advance. The traffic report, I think you said somebody is there tonight from there. I don't know how you could say no impact at all. I would have appreciated you saying, you know what, there are some considerations and maybe you need to put in a traffic light. But to say no impact, you lost me there. So I am concerned about that. I think we need some further analysis on the traffic. Just people leaving out of Buchanan to go out on Route 9 in the morning is a challenge. So it's not, well, it is a question, but it's more of a comment. I do wonder if we would end up needing a traffic light there, if we were really gonna be serious. And of course, then you'd have traffic light by the Shell station and then another traffic light right there. But I think that is of concern. The other thing is, the height, right? I think we were saying 5 stories. Down the road, right, we had Round Top. That's probably our closest example of something of that size and magnitude. And I'll stop after this. But is that right? Is Round Top about the same? Or is that only 3?
I think there's 3 stories.
It's 3 stories.
3 stories. So this
Yeah.
is higher than that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to be
Okay.
set back though,
Okay.
too, right? You have to take that into consideration.
What was that? I'm sorry.
It's going to be set back from the road where Round Top's pretty close to the road.
Round Top is set back. I mean, I think the thing is, I appreciate the fact of the trees and all of that, keep some of the noise back, et cetera. And then the last thing, I think, the last person who asked that question about market, so are we saying that this is not part of one of those affordable housing things that the New York State and Westchester County, or are we, no, yeah?
No, there will be no affordable housing there. The Village of Buchanan is one of 6 communities in Westchester County that does not have that component. So there's other communities, when a developer comes in, there's a percentage that they would have to comply with affordable housing. The Village of Buchanan never adopted that, even though the county is very interested in us in doing that, but we did not do that.
Okay, that's helpful,
All right.
because that was one of our last housing things when we were talking about over by the ball field, I think, right? That one was going to be affordable housing. Okay, and last thing is, I think we just lived through, what was it, 2 summers ago, the construction on Albany Post Road. So I think somebody may have to talk a little bit, if this gets approved, like what that construction pattern is gonna look like, because remember, there was a lot of trucks and a lot of traffic going in and out to do that work. I assume they'd have to enter the construction site from Albany Post Road?
Yeah,
Correct, yeah.
Or Craft
Yeah.
Lane.
They come in
Craft
from-
So just something to think about. I don't know the timing of when this would be happening, but I think we should reflect on what we learned from the past on how that went. But my biggest concern is probably the traffic. And I assume if these are renters, the taxes are gonna come from the building owner? Is that where, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So those real estate taxes.
Right.
Okay. All
All
right.
right, thank you, Lauren. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not a public speaker. I wasn't even planning on being here today, but I am very concerned because I'm the only person that's going to be living across from that monstrosity. I live on 274 Craft Lane. I've lived there. My father built the house in the early 50s, and I watched Buchanan, and where I live specifically, not all of Buchanan, go downhill year after year. In 1974, I believe, Buchanan got this great idea to, Craft Lane was very, very small back then. They took their idea to make it a little wider because Con Edison had renters there now. We kept our house, the 2 houses on the end are remaining private, but there were 5 houses between us. 3 of them near us were on my level, but a little higher, each one a little higher. And the other 2 were facing the other way towards the train tracks. In 74, Buchanan with Hugh Gregory, the engineer, if you want to call him that, came on the road. Now, my father built the house. We have an underneath driveway, goes straight down, which was not a problem for 14 years living there until they came and widened the road. But they widened the road from the house next door down to Route 9A, 18 inches. I have a picture of it, and the telephone pole in my house, in front of my house now, is right on the end of the grass. Previously, there were 18 inches there, which they took. They made the road, wacko, 6 inches higher than my existing driveway. Now, it was visibly able to, people could see that. My father stood out there, my mother and me, in the house saying, you can't do that, we're going to have a problem. Of course, oh no, it's going to be fine, you're going to have a nice road, nice brand new road. Well, unfortunately, obviously they were wrong because the They said you're going to have a gully where the road runs. Yes. When it's sunny day, when it looks fine, when it's raining lightly, it might work. When it's raining heavy, no, it's not going to work. So they finished the road, but they still have piles of dirt along. On Friday, before Labor Day weekend, in 1974, we had a monstrosity of a rainstorm came down. Where did the mud go? Down the road, my driveway, into my garage, and my whole basement. And that wasn't plain rainwater, it was mud. The drain was blocked totally. Our basement is semi-finished. It's mostly a storage area. My mother was a sewer, so she had all her stuff there. We had pictures there, all destroyed and mud all over the place. Mud, you can't even explain how terrible it was. We notified Buchanan. Of course, they don't care. It wasn't affecting them. Did they help? No, not at all. Not at all. Did one person show up? We went down there and called and called and called, wrote letters. Finally, somebody came without permission, put macadam across the front of the driveway on the sidewalk. So half the sidewalk is wiggly black. Strange way to do it. You should at least consult the person who lives there. How do you want it done? So they put a bump on the driveway. Before, the driveway went nice and smooth. Now you had a gasset to go down over the bump to get into the driveway. I don't have a trouble with them. I'm used to doing this. But
Do you want to, I'm sorry, I really don't mean to interrupt you, because this is like history, and I always like the history of the village. But do you have a comment to make about the proposed development?
of course,
Okay.
one of the main problems along there has always been Route 9 and Craft Lane. Periodically in heavy rain, there's a problem with water there. That's not affecting me. That's affecting Route 9. It's been a problem for a long time. I'm saying, why isn't it ever solved? And I think it was 2018. I was coming home from a nursing home. It was about 5 o'clock. And next to the hardware store is a building, I don't know what it's called, but there's a big macadam driveway. So when it rains, hitting macadam doesn't run off. It doesn't go into the ground. And that day, there was a man standing on Route 9 waving the people down saying, it's going to be, you can't go down the 9, it's hydroplaning. So I pulled into the hardware store. It only lasted about like 15 minutes. The whole area was flooded. I never saw that happen that bad. I didn't even know about this development until somebody told me about it. I don't have the cable TV to watch the meetings. And I thought when they have something like this, you normally send to 50 feet of the project a notification about something being done. I thought you did that. You used to do that. I don't know. Guess you didn't do it for this. But when I saw the pictures at my monster, a 5-story area, that's ridiculous. I mean, can't see it. I can see if you build several houses there, fine, or a store there, but 5-story building along there and all those extra people. I have trouble right now with people on my property constantly. I don't know where half of them are Con Edison, half of them are Verizon, because when they work on the Route 9, they figure they can come in my yard to park their cars there. It's amazing how people think. But
So you want us, if this moves forward, you want us to be aware of the potential issues that you would have.
There'd be a lot of issues.
With water issues.
Well, the majority of those water issues are credited to the DOT. I mean, Albany Post Road is
It's a state road.
Is a state road.
Yeah, but the water is coming sometimes in heavy rain. It bounces off that building onto the hardware store's parking lot. It comes down through the dirt path there. Then it can't go into the drain because it hits that and goes across Route 9. So that happens a lot in the winter. You'll have rain and then it gets freezes. They had this past winter, they were there putting salt all over the place.
Well, if we move forward with this project, all that water will be directed in the right direction.
No, it won't. It hasn't been solved all these years. No, it won't. I know it will not.
No, I know. They have a drainage plan that they'll have to stick by. That will
probably
direct
won't
it in- Probably not.
Hasn't worked on all these years. It's not going to start suddenly.
No, it probably won't work.
Buchanan lives in a little square box. They see everything perfectly. When there's a problem, they try to ignore it. I know that's for a fact. They ignore it. And I'm tired of it. I'm up in the age now. I'm not going to be living that much longer. But I don't want to spend my last years of my life with trucks and noise from that 5-story building. It's ridiculous, right across from my house. I give up in Buchanan, but I'm not going to be here that much longer, I don't think.
All right, thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tina Zarello. I live at 229 Westchester Avenue in Buchanan. And there was a paper on my way into the A&P, and it was a newspaper, and on the front cover of that little tchotchke newspaper was a picture of the development. And I thought to myself, where the hell are they putting this? And then I realized the size of this building, the height of it. Here we talk about it going from 3 floors to 5 floors because they decided that they were going to put the parking underneath, which now is going to raise it up. I work at Springvale Apartments, and they're garden apartments. They're 3 stories. I can see 3 stories, and I'm not opposed to cleaning up Albany Post Road. Never. I mean, I've been here 35 years. So I'm saying to all of you, before you click the button and say, yes, it's okay, remember, you keep talking about nostalgia and the fact that you love the Village of Buchanan, then you need to keep the flavor here. By doing that building at 5 stories, that monstrosity, every time I drive, I parked in front of the lot just to get a visual. And then I thought to myself, you also have Mr. Carbone, who's also at this meeting with his family. They're doing another development across from the St. Christopher's Church. So besides taking into view of this building, Mr. Carbone's is pleasant to the eye. I went to see him because I heard, oh, he does all the kitchens at Springville. Let me see what they're going to develop. So now you have 2 of these things going on Albany Post Road. One that looks like it's, I don't have the word. It's so big. It takes up, you have 6 acres. It's taking up how much of that 6 acres? And then the buffer. And you're going to give me sidewalks. You're going to give me bushes. You're going to give me drainage. You're going to give me lights. You're going to give me whatever it is I need to get my change in the zoning. I'm asking you to step back and think about what you want for the Village of Buchanan. You all want to talk about how nice the Village of Buchanan is. All I'm saying is, if you live here and you pay taxes and you truly are a village person, not from the outside coming in, you're going to look at it in a different view. So it's not the development that I'm against. It's the size of the project. I want you to keep that in mind. It's the size of the project, not the project, because we're not putting low-income housing in. And like they're saying, it's market rate. That's what we are at Springville, market rate. Mr. Carbone will be market rate. I've already checked into it. So what I'm saying is, look at Albany Post Road. You've got this, and then you have Mr. Carbone's project. 2 completely different projects. One that's pleasant to the eye and will take into consideration the things that we need to see, as opposed to this monster that's going to be built. So you can toss it around, but I've been here 35 years now. I'm ready to move. I don't want that kind of development. I want something comfortable and warming to the eye, not this big monstrosity. I really don't. So, green space. I mean, we don't even have green space. We can go every parcel. You can take a ride through the whole Village of Buchanan. There's no green space, no real green space. And I realize we need tax dollars, but at what expense? You got to figure it out. You really have to figure it out. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tina. Yeah, please. You okay?
Good evening. Bob Outhouse, Fire Chief of Buchanan Engine Company and the Buchanan Fire Department. First of all, I want to thank AMS for the meetings that we've had over the last few months, looking at the project, looking at things that we could do together to make access to the project for the fire department work. It's difficult, but I know they're working on it, and as of our last meeting, maybe looking at some of the front side of the building off of Craft Lane and getting some more space in the front of the building. So we're working on that, and I'm looking forward to hearing what they're going to come back with. And I know it did have to deal with some more steep slopes on that, would be the east side of the Craft Lane side. But turning to page 18 and 19 of the expanded EAF, where it details the fire services, I drew back a little bit when I saw a tremendous paragraph regarding the Verplank Fire Department services. The Verplank Fire District, as you know, does cut into the village of Buchanan and services the Verplank Fire Department District on the Indian Point side of Broadway. Verplank has had a ladder truck for their fire district for a very long time. In the plan, it says that it would be, I guess, projected that we would call Verplank. Any fire chief couldn't stand here today and tell you that I'm going to call Verplank, call Montrose, I'm going to call Peekskill. You just don't know what day of the week, the time of day, year we're in. It may not come from either one of them. It may come further south. It may come from Mohegan. So when we look at that, I just want to make sure that the public understands that although these are our neighboring mutual aid companies, we shouldn't specifically say they're coming, because that's the fire chief's job, and that's based on mutual aid. And if you ever listen to the police or fire scanner every day in Westchester County, there's equipment moving all around us, going to different municipalities. So I just want to draw attention to that. Other than that, I look forward to seeing what we can do with a 5-story building. We have 2 frontline apparatus that fight fires, and basically a rescue truck and a utility truck. So we look forward to working with AMS and look at the next drawings they propose. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
And thank God for mutual aid, that everybody, all the fire departments work together, use all their equipment, we all, which is great. Hi.
My name is Mariana Sherman, Craft Lane, and I've been here since 1963, a very long time, but I'm not a native yet.
You're a Buchananite. You've been here. You're a Buchananite.
Our houses were built, our 21 houses were built by Seymour Arkaway, who took a chance on Craft Lane. He built them not knowing anyone would buy them because an atomic energy plant was being built here. Instead, they went like wildfire, and we were fortunate enough to get one of the last 2 houses left. Now, I'm in the same house, and I'm looking at it from a different perspective. Now, the atomic energy plant has left. So we're in another place to make a decision. Do people want to come here with the plant leaving, with the plant gone, with the plant being demolished? I don't know. I appreciate what you have done both ways. It's time for us to look at something different. We don't know what it looks like. We don't even really know what we want. 5 stories does seem huge for someone like us. All I'm saying is history repeats itself in different ways. Just as it had to be looked at those years ago, it still has to be looked at today. Whether we like this piece of land or we want another piece of land, it still has to be looked at. That's the important thing. Whether we looked at it from this piece of property or anybody else, there's just so much land we have here. So I just wanted to point that perspective out, that we're absolutely in the same spot in a different way. But yet it's something that had to be answered that day. those properties had to be answered in that way. We're going to build them. We'll just see if people come. I don't know what transpired before that. I don't know how people felt about that, because that was total lot, trees, everything there. That was going into blank space. People liked it that way. They cut through there and they had a good time going through those woods. And I don't really know if anybody complained. I bought it after the complaint. Nevertheless, I really appreciate what you're going through, what these gentlemen are going through. We have to move in some way. Staying still isn't going to do anything for us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's no one else in the audience that's, I don't think, wants to speak, so.
Lauren, can you hear us?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is there solar? That was one thing I know and the gentleman shared. Are you doing anything with solar power or anything like that in this model?
Answer? Hi. The answer is it's not yet determined. It's certainly, we're capable of doing that. One of the things, for example, when we get to site plan and there's a determination of what the roof line is going to look like, we've made a proposal. You may have a different idea. Whether it's amenable to solar or not will have to be worked out, but it's certainly something that we're open to. And I would expect most of the new projects in Westchester County all have green elements, whether it's solar energy or some other form of, green type of use. So if it's not solar, it's going to be something, but we're not at that stage yet.
Okay, so like charging stations, but like that's what I was thinking, most new construction seems like
Charging
solar.
stations,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, charging stations, I can tell you without a doubt, you can't build a new facility without it, because we're all going to be having electric cars, and frankly, what they're doing in a lot of places now with the uncovered parking, and that again would be a site plan issue, where people put in carports, which you see in some of the other places in the country, and we're now starting to do them in Lower Westchester, because they put solar panels on top of the carports, and that's the electricity that goes to charge the cars. So that may well be something that we propose when we get to the site plan stage, but we'll have to work at that when we get through the zoning.
Thank you.
Mayor, when there are no other questions, I would like to make a few comments if I could, so when you'll let me know when it's appropriate, please.
All right. Any other comments? Maybe now would be an appropriate time, because I think there's still a lot of comments that are going to be coming in. Our administrator is away, and I understand some comments came, but he only generalized them. So I don't have people's names or anything. There was also another letter that I'd like to read into the public hearing. Read the information in. But I'll have you go first, and Dan, if you want to read, a letter from a resident. And there were other letters, so I don't know. It's up to the board, but I prefer to leave it open.
We weren't expecting to close the hearing tonight,
Okay,
but
good.
we'd be thrilled, but we weren't expecting it. It was not.
I just don't think we're ready.
For a
'cause I think
project,
there's
we understand.
Other comments.
We understand. And
people wanting to comment, and
Absolutely.
whether they come to the podium or they, write to us, email us, so that we can consider their comments too.
Sure. And I just want to say on behalf of EMS to everybody who's here and made the comments, and we know there's a lot of people here tonight, a few things. Firstly, you'll learn a lot about a village when you come to public hearings, because you hear from people and you hear specifics, the people that live nearby, and we learn, and we try to figure out a way to improve things and make something better and make it more acceptable, et cetera. I am somebody who's been doing this for 35 years in my career. I've been involved in millions of square feet of development. One of the things I've learned is, and this is true for the developer, for the government, and the public, there are trade-offs. And this is another example, and the things that are being discussed tonight are things that we're talking about with trade-offs. So, of course, it's my job to tell you all the wonderful things about the project. I'm an advocate. I'm somebody who's representing AMS. That's my job. So I'm going to point out some of those. But I would like to talk about some of the questions that came up, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that. So first, there were some questions having to do with the economics, so I'd like to be specific. Mike? Okay. I'd like to be specific about that. The documents that we provided to you indicated that the taxes per year on this project are estimated to be $840,000 per year for the village and the school district combined. The village itself would approximately get $250,000 a year in village taxes. So just again, for the public's edification, we want them to understand what we're talking about. Regardless of how many we talk about police, and you can argue over how many calls there would be, we have projects that are similar size in your neighboring communities that tell you how many police calls they get, how many fire calls they get. You can do the best you can in projecting these things. There is no doubt that there is a surplus for the village that will come out of this project with the amount of taxes it's generating versus the amount it will cost you to provide the services for the apartments that are coming. And we think we've adequately shown that in the papers that we've sent to you. In addition to that, I'll also point out that there's approximately $700,000 in fees that are going to go to the village, and things like building permit fees and other fees to pay for your villages and your apartments. And like you said, it won't pay for all of Indian Point, but it's going to help. So those are the kinds of things that you're looking at from the government standpoint. Now, when you talk about my client, we look at the economics from a different standpoint. And again, that again is also the trade-off with the public. So for example, when you say to us, it's 5 stories high because the parking's underneath. Well, we think the parking underneath is good for a few reasons. One, visual impact is the best way to go. And two, we don't want to be locating the parking, when you looked at that picture before, on where the steep slopes are. We have to, because the site has steep slopes and we want to respect the natural features, we want to pull it in tightly and have it. By the way, it's much more expensive to build parking under a building than it is to have a surface parking lot. But we're suggesting to do this and to spend the money because it's better than the environmental impact of doing it with surface parking. So again, that concept of trade-off is very important. Now I'll just go through a couple of the specifics that were raised tonight. There was an issue of the 2 bedrooms and the dens. And again, I'll talk to you about trade-offs. Most of the projects that were going forward in Westchester County and other places over the last 10 years have been 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. And the reason have been, we don't want any school children. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the papers that we gave you, the papers that we're giving you say to you that we estimate, and we happen to think it's very conservative, we estimate 9 to 13 or 14 school children, public school children per year would be coming from this building. And that's based on national formulas, regional formulas, and other projects that are in the area. We think it'll actually be less because of Buchanan's uniqueness as to where somebody with children would choose to live, et cetera. But that's the numbers that, and those are the numbers that we have to go to. That money, the roughly $400 some odd thousand a year that's going to be going to the school district more than covers those numbers. So you start there. The problem is that there's 2 types of people, primarily they're going to live in those buildings that we hope, and that's what's happening around. One is you have these young families that start off in an apartment, and hopefully when they have enough money to put down a down payment or buying a home, they generally don't have children when they move into one of these apartments, or when they do, it's 1 child and they're not even of school age yet, and then they're looking to move out when they have more money and they have an ability to buy a house. The primary user of these apartments are the empty nester. That's who's renting these apartments. That's where there's such a desperate need for this in Westchester. That's why they're building them in Somers and they're building them in Ossining, and you can go take a look at all these new complexes that are coming out. Those people, unfortunately, when they're selling their beautiful home, don't want to live in a 1-bedroom apartment. And they don't want to live in a 2-bedroom apartment. It may only be a couple, but they want a place where they can have an office because one of them still works and they want an office. They may want another room to have a fold-out couch for the grandchild when the grandchild visits. But so what we're trying to do is have a limited number of units in the place, and dens can be in the site plan process designed so they're not bedrooms. There are ways to do that where you limit that they can't have a door or they can't have a closet. There are things you can do through your code to make sure that these are dens. And that's what we're planning on doing, and that's what we are estimating. But we are asking for a limited number of apartments with a little more extra space So that person who's selling their home and needs a little room for storage or an office or whatever it is going to have an apartment that they're going to be happy with and are going to have something in Buchanan so that they can stay here. So that's one of the points that I wanted to make. There was, some point that was made, and again, I can't argue, if I lived in the area, wrong place, too big, all of those things that you're saying. And please understand that I live in Golden's Bridge. Okay, I live in a very similar community to yours. It's a one bedroom, and we just went through building a multifamily, and it's actually an affordable complex right off the highway there in Golden's Bridge, off of Route 22, our post road. So it's not that I don't understand. I wasn't involved in that development, but it is in my community. I will tell you, the only deal I've had with my wife in 35 years is you're never going to appear on a board in front of our community. You're not doing that, okay? We're not. You can do it everywhere else. That was the thing that we always did. But my point is, if you're choosing a place of where it should be, I get the concept of wanting to put it at the old Indian Point plant, and maybe someday that'll be a great idea, but we all know it's going to be quite some time and an awful lot of regulation. And by the way, getting people to agree to live there is also going to be a very difficult thing. You're going to have to find quite a risk taker who's going to decide to go in there and build a residential community for people to live. I don't know how long it's going to take for something like that to occur. So our site is not a site where we're taking down homes, where we're taking, it's a vacant site. It's also located primarily behind a hardware store. We're not even bringing it straight up to the street line, which ameliorates some of the views of the height and some other things that were mentioned. So we think this is actually a very unique site and a beautiful site. The issue becomes, why are you asking for 5 stories in this many apartments? And the bottom line is, as our person has told us, we can't afford it otherwise. The rents would have to be too high, and we don't believe the market will support it. And that's just a market study. So again, as I get into the trade-offs, that's the trade-off that we have to make. We're taking the risk to be here, that you're going to think it's a good idea and let us go forward. But if you bring it down to where we can't build those number of apartments, we're not going to be able to go forward. So again, that's not a threat in any way. It's just reality of the trade-offs that we're all dealing with. I also wanted to do a little bit of a mention of the traffic, because there was a comment that was made. Nobody, I've known this man who's representing you for many years, as well as our own traffic person. Nobody said there's no traffic impact. What they're using is terminology of professionals, which is there's things called levels of service, and they grade them like a school, A, B, C, D, E. And that has to do with how many cars are going through per minute, and how long do you have to wait at a traffic light, and all these amazing professional things that they do when they do these studies. The bottom line was the amount of traffic that we were adding did not degrade any of those intersections. It's not that there's not more traffic. There is. It just doesn't come to the point where the grade for that intersection that's the professionals use has gone down. So I just wanted that to be clear so that people don't think we're trying to pull a fast one. Nobody is suggesting that we're not adding traffic. We're not adding a lot of traffic. And frankly, in the world we're living in, we're even adding a lot less traffic than they probably give us credit for, because in the old days, as you all know, people left at the same time and came home at the same time, and that's just not the case anymore. So really the issue with traffic is always peak, and when is everybody coming at once, and that is much more spread out as it goes along, but I'll let the professionals talk about that. And finally, I guess my 2 last points were there was a question about construction management, et cetera. That construction management plan, we will be thrilled to do that. That comes at the end of the process. When you tell us that you're going to build a building and you're ready to go, we will have a full construction management plan. It costs a lot of money to put it together. You'll know the hours that we're working, where the trucks are coming in, how many trucks a day. All of those things go into a construction management plan. That's not something that we have yet, but that's something that is certainly going to be required of us. I see David shaking his head because he's done it before, and I know that's something that they're going to require. Finally, and the last point was the lady who's on Craft Lane, I didn't get her name, I'm not sure it came out, who spoke about the stormwater and the drainage. We believe that we will improve the stormwater issue when we are done. We are required to do that under state law. We think by putting in the sidewalk and the things that we will have to do with the stormwater, what's interesting you do when you go into a new development, people come up and complain, rightfully so, about the existing condition. Well, we had nothing to do with the existing condition. We're not there yet. So when we come in, and what happens with government has tools now, you don't have money, you're not unlike your sister governments, and you don't have the dollars necessarily to fix every problem in there. And a lot of governments these days use the private dollars and the development to come in and do a lot of the work that used to be governmental money because you're capped on how much you can charge in taxes and all the rest of it. So we genuinely believe, and we'll tell you that we think our stormwater plans and engineering plans, which you'll see during site plan, will be an improvement in the area for those stormwater points. So those are my points. I thank you for the time.
And unfortunately, the woman you spoke of just left.
She just left.
I wish she had heard that.
Okay, but did you get her name? I didn't hear her name.
I don't think she announced her name.
I'm sorry?
Jean Rudy.
Jean Rudy. Okay, just from my notes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to make a few comments. The traffic, that's something we're all trying to get our head around. So as we go through the site plan, Mark, just know there's going to be a lot more questioning on the traffic. And also, I do want to comment on the Indian Point property. We had an agreement with Holtec. We became an intervener between Entergy, the sale of Entergy and Holtec, and the agreement was to continue to talk about releasing that property. It is 60 acres to the north. It's pristine virgin land. It has never been touched. So before that property can be released, there has to be a site characterization. So what they would have to do is all these, you look for the wildlife there and if there's any radioactivity. We all believe that the topo isn't there. It's 60 acres. The thought from the village was to build to the very northern end of it. So the middle section, as we all know, that's going to be 10, 12, 15 years, God knows, with what they're doing, what the anti-nuclear people want us to put actual storage tanks to contain the water that's been being discharged for 60 years under the control of EPA, DEC. I can go on for hours, but I'm not going to. So if they're forced to put those containers there on that middle section of the property, that's just going to blow that. Forget that. Forget about doing the decommissioning. Also, the southern end of the property has potential too. So I do know what you're saying, the middle section, I don't know what that will be. I don't know where I will be at that point, but I hope I live long enough to see the property developed and, for the village to recoup what it lost and for people to be able to use that property to go down to the water, which we haven't in many, many years. So I just wanted to clarify that the 240 acres are not contaminated, as we know of right now. So that's why we're focused on the 60 acres north. And if that becomes available, I know the board will be in discussion with Holtec. We will continue. So that's the direction we're going. And if that happens, that's a win for the village. So I just wanted to clarify that, Mark.
We're rooting for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments from the floor? Yes, sir.
Since I'm here representing the village, I will speak. My name is Philip Greeley from Collier's Engineering and Design. Follow up to Mr. Weingarten's comments. So early in the process, the village took the initiative to reach out to New York State DOT, make them aware of this proposed development. And at the time, there was also discussion of a development off of Lake Street and Albany Post Road opposite the high school. So we had a discussion with representatives from the DOT, the highway work permit coordinator, the local permit engineer, to just make them aware and to find out, what their comments, concerns were. So they are aware of it. I believe the village did receive a response back relative to the zoning text changes that at this time the DOT didn't have any detailed comments, but clearly as part of the site plan approval process and even before that, some of these comments that were raised tonight will have to be addressed. So as part of the DOT review process, and we've done our initial review of the applicant's traffic study that was done, and that was scoped out in terms of what they were going to address. We have some comments. The board has a copy of our letter, I believe. We wanted them to look at, the warrants for a traffic signal. You can't just put a traffic signal up. You have to generate enough traffic to have a signal installed. So we've asked for that. There's several other technical items that we've asked for. But as part of the DOT, and the applicant has made certain mitigation measures that they've proposed in terms of addressing pedestrian movements, sidewalks. That doesn't mean that that's the end of what the village can ask for. And New York State DOT, believe it or not, when it comes to private development, as part of the permit review, they are not shy. As Mr. Weingarten mentioned, the applicant has to handle their stormwater, and if there are existing problems, the DOT will, and now this is good information to have aware of so that it can be passed along to the DOT so that this is addressed as part of the permit process once an application gets to that point. So I think just so the public knows, we are looking at the technical aspects on behalf of the village. We interact with DOT when they get more into the details of such, and they are not shy when it comes for asking for mitigation, whether it be a turn lane or updating traffic signals, making them operate more efficiently. They are aware of the traffic conditions in the area, but the state says, well, we have no money to do improvements, as always. But again, as part of the development review, they will work, to make sure that improvements are done commensurate with the traffic generation from the development. So I just wanted to, let the public know that we are going to continue working on behalf of the village.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the biggest concerns.
Absolutely, it always is. So.
And in addition to that, you're also looking into crosswalks.
Correct. Yes. One of the main focuses when we had the early discussion with DOT was the connectivity of sidewalks.
Right.
There's where this site is and the lack of sidewalks on certain sections of Albany Post Road. So that's important. And then how the crosswalks would be treated, and that ties in. If you can't justify enough traffic to have a traffic signal, there are other methods of crosswalk controls, and the DOT is has control over that. Mm-hmm. But those are the things that we would look at and make sure that get worked into any final plans, and anything else that the village feels important about. And having the input from the public is good because, for example, the drainage issue, that maybe there's part of the drainage review, there can be things that can be helped. Existing conditions. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no further comments, since there is, oh, I'm sorry, yes.
My name's Paul Hackert from Gallagher Street, Buchanan. I'm a retired police officer from Ossining. The reason I chose to live in Buchanan is because of what Buchanan is. Nice, quiet little town. You're going to change that if this goes forward. This is just the start. This is just the beginning. I know you're talking about revenue and saving the village. That's one thing, but do it a different way. Don't bring a 5-story apartment building in here. It's just going to multiply, multiply, multiply. And it's going to become a city instead of a village. You won't have a village anymore where people want to come. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Hager.
Hi, Devise Rivera. I live on Craft Lane. Question. I saw on some of the papers that you guys did the traffic pattern in between peak hours. And if I'm not mistaken, the dismissal of the school was not considered, that time was not considered during the traffic pattern. So I don't know if that could, be something that could be considered, because it's kind of not true numbers if you don't consider the dismissal time, because that's the true peak hours of the town, not 4 to 6.
That's true. That's crazy time.
Yeah.
The kids get out of school. Did you want to comment on that, Mr. Greeley? Thank you.
Sure.
That was actually discussed with New York State DOT, the activities both in the morning and at dismissal time. So I think we've been waiting for DOT to provide all their comments so that the applicant can address everything, but that is clearly one item that will be addressed. And it was discussed very much detail relative to at the time, the proposal at Lake Street because of the complexity of what occurs there. So that will be addressed.
Thank you. All right, we have other comments that our administrator has, and we have a very interested group. So we are going to hold the public hearing open. So anyone who is on TV, if you want, you can come in at the next meeting, you can send us an email, you can contact us. And we're definitely interested what your thoughts are. We appreciate everyone for coming out tonight. This is one of our largest meetings we've had in a long time, but thank you, that you're so interested in the village and you're so concerned that you'll come and give us your comments.
Make a motion so they can all agree to hold it open.
Yes, so I'd like to make a motion to hold open this public hearing
Till July.
till the July meeting.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you so much.
Can I ask
This
for the July
to be
meeting?
continued.
When is the July meeting?
The July 5th.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, it's a Wednesday, so that's going to throw us off, but July 4th is a holiday. You're right. Thank you, Cindy, for letting us know that. Okay.
No way.
Oh, geez, yeah. So the next is, moving on to new business. We're going to be, we're going to be setting another public hearing for the July 5th regarding Chapter 165 entitled Steep Slopes. So we'll have two public hearings going on at the same time. I'd like to make a motion, can you hear me? Yeah, you could hear me. Okay, good. I'd like to make a motion to schedule a public hearing on July 5th, 2023 regarding Chapter 165 entitled Steep Slopes.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we'll have two public hearings in July. The next is, I would like to make a motion to increase the fixed asset level to $10,000. The fixed asset schedule is used by the auditors to verify the existence of fixed assets and to trace them back, the items back to the general ledger balance. This increase is a recommendation from the auditors. So, Cindy, it went from what amount to 10,000? From 1,000 to 10,000. So, on a motion,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And it's that time of the year where we hire our recreation personnel for the camp. So I will read the director is $6,050, assistant director $4,550, our nurse is $18 an hour, our labor is $15 an hour, art specialist $15 an hour, aftercare $13 an hour, senior counselors, $12 an hour, junior counselors, $10 an hour, and junior counselors in training, $8 an hour. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the employment of the recreation personnel for our camp. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And our camp is very popular, so people enjoy it. I think they should have a camp for the big kids, too.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going to make a motion authorizing the employment of recreational personnel for the pool. The WSI is the water safety instructor at $25.50 an hour. The director is $21.50 an hour. Lifeguard varies with experience, so $15 to $17 an hour. The head guard gets $1 more per hour when working as head guard. So can I have a motion to approve?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And the last one is, we hire summer help. And we're a little bit short over the sewer treatment plant. So what we're doing this year, Timmy Dunne, who used to be in the building here, plus part-time he would be in our sewer treatment plant, has agreed to work part-time over at the sewer treatment plant, probably 2 days a week, 4 hours, so anywhere between 8 and 12 hours a week. So I'd like to make a motion authorizing the employment of Tim Dunne as a seasonal laborer at the sewer treatment plant starting on June 7th. Is that tomorrow? Tomorrow, 2023, at a rate of $15 an hour.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next, we're going to do information from officers and departments. Yeah. The justice report? Oh, yes, please, yep. So first of all, the justice reports for April 2023. One of the reported amounts was $919, the other was $3,479. Police reports.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The Village of Buchanan Police Report for the month of April. The Police Department had a total of 146 calls, 4 arrests, 9 assists of other agencies, and 3 disputes. They also, on the traffic ticket breakdown, they had 16 speeding and 12 other miscellaneous violations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's our next report? Highway report.
Yes, I will handle that one. For April of 2023, household garbage, 71 tons. Bulk and dumpsters, 17 tons. Dumpsters, 7 tons. Bag leaves, 7 tons. Metal, 2 tons. Wood chips, 39 yards. A lot of TVs, 15. The guys at the highway department were busy this month. They're doing a lot of grass cutting. Out fixing manhole potholes. Scoot was out actually, Mr. Horton actually was out on Blakely Avenue trying to update the system of the traffic light. What else was Scoot doing? Here he is here. They borrowed the excavator from the Croton DPW. They did a set of stairs that they came out very nice at Lens Cove, and they also built another set of stairs going to the village pool, which is under construction right now. A lot of repairs, maintenance on stuff in the housekeeping. At the current time, they are actually replacing water valves in the village as a pre-pave operation to set up for the, asphalt and milling that's going to happen within the next couple of months. That's it.
Thank you. Wastewater, so treated wastewater, 8,950,000 gallons. Sludge removal, 33,000 gallons. Lab report submitted to Westchester County Department of Health, 6, and also lab report submitted to the DEC are 6. So all the numbers are good. We're doing great over there. Thank God, we're doing good. So Dan, what do we have for you? The next is the building department, and I think going forward, Bob, I think I'm gonna have you handle, you wanna do the building department report now? Or going forward, I'm gonna have you
Okay.
do the building departments. Thank you.
Okay, let's see, looks like had a busy month here. He issued 16 permits. They, let's see, they have an inspection required for newly issued permits of 18. They issued 12 C of Os and a few other things, but he's a busy guy. Thank you. Have you been up there yet? I tried.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Planning board report for March 23rd, 2023, received and filed, Buchanan Engine Company.
Sure, that would be me. So Buchanan Energy Company, for the period of April 1st to the 30th, they had a total of 20 calls, 0 structure fires, EMS assists of 4, 9 automatic alarms, mutual aid of 7, And I just want to give a shout out and a thank you to Bobby and all the men and women that volunteer for our fire department. So that was the report. Thank you.
Prosecutor's report, nothing this month. Attorney's report, Stephanie, what do you have for us?
Only
Anything?
executive session, please.
Okay.
Quickly, in executive
Thank
session. You're welcome.
So talk fast, right?
I'll talk fast.
No administrative report. Trustees report. Bob, let's start with
You
you.
want me to start? Okay, well, first I'd like to thank everyone who came out tonight. I mean, there's a lot going on in the village. These are big decisions that need to be made. And it's great to see a lot of people here showing their interest in what's going on and how we're going to try to move forward. I do have a question for the mayor. We have a decommissioning meeting here, right?
We have a decommissioning meeting on June 15th here at 6 o'clock, so please come out. This is really important. We have the anti-nuclear groups trying to tell the Village of Buchanan what to do once again.
Right.
So,
I knew it was this month, I just forgot what the
Yeah.
date was. I did attend the Memorial Day Parade that Verplank sponsored this year. They had a great turnout, and they did a great job with their with their dedications of 5 benches, I think it was.
yeah.
So ex-mayor and trustee Sean Murray was running that. He did a great job.
Good.
I do have something I want to bring up about, we've been asked a few times now about getting people out information. And I think we have discussed this in the past about getting some kind of a message board or something that we can have out in the community somewhere for everyone to be updated with what's going on. You know, it seems like these electronic message boards are a popular thing these days. I think it's something maybe we should consider doing here, maybe put it somewhere in the front lawn somewhere where it's not right in the middle of the lawn, obviously, but somewhere where people can, when they go by, they'll see it. It is an attention getter when it's electronic like that. The school has one.
Yeah.
All the
Put
fire
it too
departments
close to
have
the
them.
road.
Yeah.
So I think we should really look into getting that done. We have a lot going on.
Oh, there's a permit required. Okay.
But we have a lot
We'll
going
get
on.
it.
You know, I think we
Yeah,
have to
no,
use
it's a good
every
way
way we
to
can to possibly let
get information out.
the community know what's going on.
All right, we definitely will look into that.
And what
All right,
else?
good.
And just like to wish everyone, you know, all the dads out there, a happy Father's Day this month. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the public who came out and attended the meeting and asked the questions. And, you know, I really want to thank, you know, I believe it was Mrs. Sherman that came out and recognized the fact that, you know, we can't stand still. We need to really look at everything, and I really think that's what we're doing here. Nothing here tonight is going to be approved, was approved. It's going to take a long time. There's going to be a lot more studies, a lot more input from the applicant before anything ever gets approved. And, you know, it's just our job here to listen to the public's needs and wants and what's best for the village. And, you know, we need the participation from the public, and we appreciate you guys coming out. One suggestion I have, Mayor, I know sometimes, you know, each of us may receive an email from somebody in the public, but if there's a way that we could possibly get one email that goes to all of us.
Yes, everyone should have
either
gotten
like a
that whole
village-
chain of emails, the letters that came in.
No, I mean, if we can put out there maybe like a village board at Village of Buchanan. This way, if
Oh,
somebody
okay.
is looking to reach the board, they could send one email out and it goes to
Oh, I see.
all
Yeah.
5 of us.
All right, no, that's
This way,
good.
you know, if I get something, I don't have to worry about sending out to the
Oh,
rest
that's a
of
good
the
idea. No, I like that. General,
Yeah, I know
box.
the Board of Education, the board, the school board has something similar.
all right, good.
So,
No, that's good.
Everybody got it.
Yeah.
Just
That's a good idea.
Couple other things for, you know, possibly for the workshop. Maybe a discussion on the fee schedule, you know, updating some of the fees. I know Trustee Stewart brought up the noise ordinance concern that we've had recently. And, you know, speaking with the chief, you know, $100 fine really isn't, you know, doesn't really do much. But if we can have kind of like a sliding scale, you know, second call for a different, you know, different offense, third call, you know, a higher rate. And then also, you know, if we could discuss possibly the work session, also the pickleball court or tennis court that we've all talked about, and possibly if we can get an update on the camp.
Okay.
You know, as we're getting closer to that time of year, whether it's, you know, next workshop or the one after.
Okay.
That's all I have.
And I wanted to talk to Stephanie also about, you know, the recreation money that we
Yes.
have that's available, how we can change that code or the law. We had a short discussion.
There's a fund balance in the recreation department that we're looking to change code so that we can transfer it over and it can be utilized.
Okay.
So Steve can be the pickleball champion of Buchanan, right, Steve?
I've
never
absolutely-
played. I don't know.
I have no idea about pickleball, but I hear it's a big thing.
And the fee schedule, another thing we have to work on with the fee schedule is, and I have to go through months of meetings, but we did have a discussion 2-3 years ago about fee for developers in lieu of recreation. So that's something we
Mhm.
definitely have to work on, and hopefully we could do that at the workshop too. Trustee Dan, what do you have for us?
Mr. Laker and myself and Anthony Capicotti attended to Montrose Firemen's annual parade, which was, they had a nice turnout, so it was, we appreciate the invite. My other item was, yes, I echo Steve in relation to the fees, in relation to the noise and what other kind of violations are taking place. I think that's an area that needs to be discussed. And I also think we need to put on the workshop meeting to have a discussion in relation to the insurance and whether we should be looking at that to go out to bid, and also some of the issues that come up when it comes to people wanting to use our facilities and have to furnish evidence of insurance and certificates of insurance, because I think we're all not on the same page, especially, and it just causes some problems. So I would like to put that on the workshop.
All right, good. No, thank you. Yep, we will do that.
And happy Father's Day to everyone, and anybody that has a child or grandson or granddaughter that may be graduating. So we're in graduation season.
Yeah, we are. Trustee
Thank you.
Capicotti, what do we have? Thank you.
I wanted, touch on what Steve said. Everybody had good points here. Steve was pretty vocal about the people coming out into, we are in a situation here where we need to build revenue, and that's why we're heading in this direction. And to see the public come out and hear their whether they're interested in this or they're not interested in it, it's valuable to us. And that's why I did this. This is why I decided to run for office in the Village of Buchanan, because I wanted to help the village the best that I can. And I know that's why Steve and Dan have done it as well. And we're not professionals at this, but, we need to make movements here that are productive for the village to move forward. Otherwise, there's not going to be a village. And I think that this is something that needs to really be investigated. And we are doing our homework. We have David who's doing his homework. Stephanie's doing her homework. We're all doing it. And the public needs to come out like they did tonight. That's why I'm glad we kept the hearing open, to keep the comments coming and make them loud. It doesn't matter what you say or how you say it. We have to listen, and we are going to listen. And there's been a lot of comments that have been made that I don't like to hear, because I'm here, I may have a different view on it, but we have to come to some kind of agreement to save the village. And I think it's imperative that development happens in the village, whether it happens this way or some other way, it needs to happen. Otherwise, we are not going to be here for long. There was questions that I've gotten on emails that weren't even touched on tonight, traffic study things that were kind of touched on. The fire department stuff. Bob came up and said what he said we had to say about the verplank in our mutual aid situation. I know there's ladder towers in multiple facilities in the area, and that's up to him to decide where he goes. But it's a 5-story building. It's a big thing for the fire department, for the police department, and for us, the community. But we all have to work together and get this done. I think it's our future, and I hope that in the public hearing moving forward that everybody keeps participating and we come out of this with the right answer and in a productive way. And happy Father's Day to all us, and grandfathers, everybody, and happy graduation. And yes, Dan and Steve did go to the Memorial Day. I didn't make the Memorial Day parade. I'm sorry for that. I was sick. But we went to the Cortland Engine Parade, and I had a great time. And it was great. Our Buchanan Engine Company looked great out there, and I had a great time. So, thank you, and I'll see you in the next meeting. I'm done.
Okay, we're not. Anyhow, so, no, thank you to, you guys attending the Montrose parade. We like to support our neighbors. Montrose is a good neighbor of ours. And also, thank you, Bob, for going to the Memorial Day parade representing the village.
Thank you.
Also, June 14th, for the elected officials over at Holtec, they're having a meeting, the meeting before the June 15th meeting for the elected officials. I believe it's at 10 o'clock. So I will let you guys know if you're available, please, go over to the meeting. The big new thing with me is I have a new knee. So I had knee surgery about a week and a half ago. Finally got my knee replacement. So I'm not. You see me hobbling. Anthony did not kick me. So just so you know.
Not yet.
Not yet. He's doing good so far. So yeah, I'm just hobbling a little bit, but I'm getting around. Right,
You're
Ant?
doing great.
That's right. I'm doing great.
Speedy recovery.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. It's not been so speedy. What else do I have for you? And then, are there any comments from the floor? Because
Hands raised?
we'll be going into an Oh, there, she's here in person. Eileen, wow.
I couldn't miss a public hearing.
Oh, okay. July 5th also, don't forget.
Good evening.
Hello, Eileen.
Good evening.
Thank you. I want to, wow, that's loud.
Yeah, timer 3 minutes. No, it's no.
I want to thank David for his presentation for the public. We've all been through this before, but it was important, and I think you did a superb job. Anthony, I would like you to go with Mr. Horton and go check out the abominable condition of the beautiful masonry work at the end of the brook on my property.
Okay.
That the village has the easement for.
Okay.
It's going to crumble.
Mhm.
It's got
Is that
great.
the outlet for the pipe, the wastewater, the stormwater pipe?
Stormwater pipe.
Yeah, it's a stormwater pipe, but
Okay.
it doesn't get cleaned.
Mhm.
I've had noodles go through there to the lake
Mhm.
as it goes down the brook.
I will get on it.
So, that really needs to be made aware of.
Okay.
And I'm not blaming, Scoot, I'm really not, because he did put a grate that's right on top of the big pipe,
Mhm.
and that works fine. That was a major thing because you could have really had some liabilities there. It was a
Sure.
2-foot hole.
Okay.
And I would mow around it and leave the grass grow up so that nobody would walk on it. So it was just a point that he did take care of that. So I am appreciative of that.
He's aware of the situation? Is he aware of it, or you want me to make him aware of it and we'll go together?
Yeah, I just want you to go look at it.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at you as a construction guy, who knows
And,
masonry.
I do a lot of stormwater for the state, so.
Yeah, so, I'm not complaining about this, anything other than the fact that this easement that's
Yeah.
been in effect for decades
Mhm.
just never was attended to. It's never been cleaned, and it's only when you get these horrific storms, thunderstorms, a lot of water at one time, that you see the difference in what happens in that brook and how it flows down into the lake. But there's a lot of garbage that gets into that. So there may be some way to remedy that.
Yeah.
You
So
know.
like a storm event from like Friday, right?
Yeah,
'Cause it came down.
Thunderstorms or
Yeah.
any quick storms that,
Mhm.
bring a lot of rain quickly. That's what happens. And that's why that oil spill up at Frank G came right down through that stormwater and went right into the lake. So, it's, so I would just like you, because of your expertise and
Yeah.
because Scoot is really good at all this stuff, attending to it once it's told, to be able to look at that and
Absolutely.
correct it. Okay?
I'll reach out to him tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
And Eileen, it's amazing how those plastic noodles get into the storm water. You would think they would clog up our system. So please do not put noodles in the storm drains.
I haven't heard that in a while.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss contractual, litigation, and personnel. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.